Welcome to Whole Lot of Wolves, episode 11 of season 5. I'm Joshua Buckley alongside my host, Paul LePage.
Hello.
On the socials, we have Danny.
Hello.
And our guest tonight, making his return. He is known as Stone Cold Strand Larson on Twitter. It is Adam Cohen, who has a new podcast. How's it going, Adam?
Going good. Thanks for the invite and thanks for the potty shout. Appreciate it.
Yeah, tell us about the potty.
Sure. So we try to cover. We don't really cover tactics and last week's game. We try to cover some theme or something interesting that happened during the week and really give it a deep dive. So we've talked about whether we would be better off being relegated, whether we should get rid of the international break, and whether Wolves are cursed, which was our first episode and probably one of the more interesting ones. And I think this week we'll be talking about VAR.
Oh, VAR.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Paul, speaking of VAR, I thought the candle was going to work, guys. I really did. It was 1-1, and we were holding on. It was looking good until it wasn't. John Stones at the gun, basically, scores a goal. VAR, originally, Nope steps in and goes, psych, nah. We'll give it to Man City. Paul, what did you... do you feel like fair or foul that the goal was allowed?
Based on it's consistency, right, at the end of the day. So fair enough if that's a goal, but it just means that Kilman's versus West Ham last season, that should have been a goal in my book. Got no complaints if either of those are given, and hence yesterday. What I've got an issue with is the build-up to it. Again, there was talk at the start of the season about cutting down on challenges in the box leading up to a corner. If that's not interference on Sarr, I don't know what is, especially as another foul got given again for us earlier when he got his foot trod on and went down. So that was given. Again, a little consistency would be nice. So I'm gonna bitch about that. But I think for me, it's just like, really, where do you draw the line now? That it seems continual, that there's always something, and it would always be something to the extent that, is that going to be given if it's the opposite way round at the 95th minute in our favour? And you start to question whether it would be. And I'm disappointed out of everything with that foul, that should have been given, because it stops Sarr from, in theory, coming for that ball, in theory, to come and contest it. Now, whether he would have done, I don't really care. But if your run is blocked off by a defender or whoever, if you're challenging for the ball, in theory, it could be a penalty. So that's what gets me. It's just like, where's the consistency? And out of everything, we can bitch and moan as much as we want about that, but how a foul wasn't given just a few minutes before, when bursting through, Guedes attacking, brought down, two hands on the back, at least, arguably a trip or a very harshly contested ball win from Nunes, how that wasn't given when every single one was for the whole game, just baffles me. It really does, because you just know that our boy Tommy Doyle would have stepped up and put it in top bins to win it at that point. So maybe that was the reason that they didn't give it, just because they knew what was going to happen.
Yeah, and O'Neill cited perhaps bias by the referees. I think my favorite part, Danny, was that the officiating league has come asked for O'Neill's observations on his comments about it. What do you think of that?
It's such a weird wording, and I don't know if there's any precedent for that. I mean, like, often
it's comments on your comments.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know. I already gave my observation. I think there's unconscious bias. I mean, to the larger point, it just feels like I'm pretty much behind O'Neal. I think that like he deserves a lot of time, like given the schedule and et cetera, et cetera. I've said that many times, but like it's just another thing where it's like, do we really need this right now? Like I know that like I mean it would have been a tough position to be put in. I've seen people saying like, I shouldn't say anything at all. Like we got to be making nice. Well, we are sitting bottom of the league. But like, the question gets asked by a reporter and you can't just say like, nope. I mean, you could, but like, he wants to give some kind of answer. But I just have this sinking feeling that nothing good is going to come with it. Maybe partly because, when I was finishing out my workday, I was watching the Forest game and Nuno is sitting up in the stands because he's serving a touchline ban. It's just like, man, I really do not need that, especially as our fixtures start to turn a bit better. I mean, I don't know. Maybe there are people out there who think we'd do better if Sean Derry was on the touchline instead.
It would be funny because we've identified as the Southampton game as really a must-win, and if he was suspended for that game, what do we do? What do we do then? Heading into the game will there be a change in shape? And there was a major change. O'Neal went with the three center backs, but he also went with three midfielders, so a little bit of a 3-5-2. Adam, were you encouraged by that setup?
No, I mean, I still think the problem is less with the center backs, not that they're without fault, but I think the three midfielders where you have the same midfielder three times has been the lion's share of the issue. I thought that for the game plan, it worked okay because the whole plan was sit back, defend, and really don't get out of your shape. And anytime they got out of the shape, O'Neal was kind of freaking out. So I think it was okay for what we were trying to accomplish in this game. If this is how we're going to play going forward, I think, I thought the change to Doyle was a good one, but I don't think Doyle was really able to get anything going. But that's not really his fault and more, kind of the issue with who we were playing and what we were trying to accomplish as the game plan.
Yeah, Paul, I saw a comment after the game from O'Neal who said he took Andre out at halftime for Doyle because Andre wasn't executing the game plan, but then he added, well, Andre's also been on international duty and came in late. What do you think of that comment?
I was quite surprised that Andre started, actually, that given he'd probably taken all that minutes or all of that travel, I think it was probably a stretch for him to at least start, maybe come on and feature at some point. But I can kind of see it some way in that he may not, either him or the three as a whole may not have been the ideal setup. And maybe that was prompted the change for Doyle and possibly someone to put their foot on the ball a little bit and spread it around, or at least to try and take the initiative somewhat and make it more offensive from the midfield, because it was just wave after wave after wave. But even that didn't really happen second half either.
Danny, Jurgen Strand-Larsen had another great game. I like that he does the dirty work, but now he's putting in a lot of goals. 3 on the season, 2 in the last 2 matches. I mean, do you feel like he's potentially going to be a superstar at this rate?
I don't know if I'm ready to say superstar, but I mean, in terms of what we've needed for several seasons now, and especially what we've needed under a couple different managers who, prefer to work with that kind of striker, I continue to be really excited about his potential for this season and beyond. I just think, he is sort of that like jack of all trades, sort of like, I don't know. I don't want to call him a complete forward, like he's not like Raul in that regard, but he really can cause the back line to think of several different threats. And in this one, obviously, we're playing at City. He's really going to be a point man. The goal is like a perfect example of that, where we get it wide and get a cross in, and he's there to put it in. I think it even came off his shin, but it doesn't matter at that point. But in the other games, he's not drifting out wide necessarily. And that's something like that's a trap we've got caught in the past, where people who have been forced to play as nines for us, like Wang or whatever, end up drifting out wide and they're so much less effective. He's still within the width of the box, but he is able to impact the play in so many different ways. You know that if we have a break on and for some reason the ball is with him instead of, with Semedo or something, he can put the ball to someone like Cunha or Forbes in the end of that game. So yeah, I continue to be really excited about the possibilities as long as we can shore up the defense behind him.
Well, Adam, Santi Bueno had a really good game. He had a role in that goal, and then he did pretty good on defense, as well as Semedo, also solid on defense and making that great pass. How'd you feel like they played, the two of them, both on offense and defense as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, I've always thought Santi Bueno is a pretty good center back. I'm surprised, and they all make mistakes. So, sometimes he gives up a goal by not pressing his man. And that's kind of where the Guardiola goal comes, because nobody presses on him when he's cutting inside. It's the fourth time or third time we've seen that same goal. So that's a little disappointing that none of them are learning from that. But in terms of a Premier League center back, I think Santi Bueno is perfectly fine. Can do the job, has done the job. He looked really good. Can't really blame him in particular for anything. I think he did have that hockey assist for the goal. So that was a really nice forward diagonal pass, which set everything up for Semedo to then press forward and then cross it into the shin, as Danny said, of Strand Larson, my boy Stone Cold Strand Larson. So, yeah, no, I thought they both looked really good. Semedo defended well. Can't really give them any harsh criticisms for this one, other than got to learn to press your man when they're cutting in from that side, because that's the third or fourth time we've seen that goal, and it's really frustrating. Because if we could see it, then you would hope Gary could see it, and if Gary could see it, then the player should be aware of it and know what to do.
Paul Semedo had that great pass on the Strand Larson goal. He had a chance himself. Not so hot. And do you feel like that cost the Wolves a point?
I do, actually, I don't think the thing is about costing us a point is it wouldn't have, even at 2-0 down, it wouldn't have stopped Man City's wave after wave of pressure. Right. So that was coming regardless, and we were finding it very difficult to even pick apart an opportunity or get a sniff to execute on that counter-attack plan. But I do think 2-0 up could have changed it. At least I'd have had some confidence in us holding out for a point with a 2-goal cushion against Man City. But I don't know about you guys, but watching, it was like I wanted that ball to fall to absolutely anyone else but Semedo in that position, because we've been there, like, not countless, but a lot of times. I remember vividly, like, the start of the Bruno Lage season, when he probably had 2 or 3 consecutive games of having that one sole chance when he was through one-on-one, and he never came off. So I was kind of expecting what was going to happen. I was really hoping that he was going to get clipped and it'd be a foul and we'd get a sending off at least, but it could have changed things. It was a good move. You just wish it had fallen to someone else who had a better chance of putting it away.
On FIFA, Nelson Semedo currently has a 49 on finishing, and that's probably very generous at the 49. Yeah, Matt Doherty slots that, by the way. Slots it in. Now, granted, he gives up 2 goals, but
have we seen a goal like that from him where he'd be like running through on goal? I'm going to have to look back at the archives.
Yeah. I don't know. It's all, it is what it is, right?
The pace puts him in that position to begin with. So we can't knock him for that. And Doherty hasn't got an inch of that pace. So finishing, but getting in there in the first place, I highly doubt.
There's got to be a Matt Doherty all goals comp on YouTube, right?
Probably 4 minutes long.
It probably has 5 views, all by the Doherty family. And some random Irish guy in a pub. Well, I feel like, Danny, the fixtures are finally starting. This is the point where we looked and said, okay, if we could just get through October, we're almost there. This one's going to be tough at Brighton, but do you feel like now's the time? And based on what you saw, are they able to make a run coming up?
I mean, I'm, after this game, I wasn't feeling amazing, but I still felt like it was a spirited performance, and I don't think that we were looking for a game where the players understood their roles and where we kept a fairly consistent shape, where the whole game was sort of pretty even emotionally also. And I think we got all of those things. Like, they put in a complete performance against one of the best teams in the world. And so I continue to be, cautiously optimistic. I mean, it's impossible not to hedge your bets on that. I said before we started recording that the thing that's going to utterly kill me is if we turn into charity wolves when we start playing teams that also don't have many wins. So, and even against Brighton, I was looking back through their record. They had a lot of draws early in the season. And I think, they've been playing much more attritionally, which might suit how attritional our season has been so far. And so, I think that we have every chance. We had a chance against Newcastle. I think if we have a chance against Newcastle, then we can have a chance against Brighton. It's just a matter of whether Gary and the boys can put it all together at the same time.
Adam?
Yeah, I mean, I felt confident as you could be after playing City that we would be okay. But honestly, I felt the same way after we played Liverpool. And I thought we played well against, Newcastle. I thought we were playing okay. So I don't know if this is the turning point. I don't know if we'll be doing anything different or better on the way forward. Right after we played those matches, we played against Brentford, and we were awful, right? So just because we played well against a good team, we tend to play well against good teams, and then we play down to the teams that we should be beating, and it's kind of a toss up for the teams that should be around us, which I would think Brentford would be. So I'm not sure if the change in fixtures gives me any more comfort or if I feel any better. I mean, I still think we have an excellent squad and we should be performing much better. And maybe returning to a back five is going to be kind of that catalyst for getting the best out of the forward players again. But I don't know. I'm not feeling as confident as I should be just because of this performance, as good in quotes as you want to put that.
I'm still out. I think I personally think that you expect that type of performance, like against Man City, with the particular setup that he put out there. To me, I think it will be a turning point on Saturday against Brighton. I think really, for me, his only hope to keep the job is a win and 3 points, which is going to be really tricky, because I would rather, if that brings an end to his tenure, I'd rather him go out prior to those critical fixtures, what there will be at that point, to at least get that new manager bounce in there, rather than potentially rock up against those fixtures and not get anything from them if this run continues. So I'm down to give it on Saturday. If he gets a win, great. Hopefully that's the building block that he can kick on with and take some momentum into those easier fixtures. But for me, it's 3 points or he can go.
Yeah. Danny, 3 points or go? What do you think of that?
Not quite for me. I understand the desire to have someone new in before the easy fixtures. I guess I think of it slightly differently. I think of it as in, I don't have control over the situation, and I just don't think that they're going to do that. I I think that they will wait at least until the next international break, which is after we play both Palace and Southampton. It's near the beginning of November, I guess, or mid-November. And so I think that they're going to leave it until then at least. And they might even wait until later, till sometime in December. I don't know. I think I've seen some very credible arguments saying that they think that Fosun would just stick with him the whole season. Just say ride or die. And so like, I don't know. I don't think about it in terms of like what I would do because I don't have any control over it. I don't know. I think they will probably think of it like this. It will not look great if they sack O'Neill after having a ton of very difficult games, including Brighton, who are a decent team, and then bring in someone who doesn't immediately turn it around. That'll look bad, very, very bad too. So,
well, another thing we have to consider, Fosun's has become notoriously cheap. O'Neill signed that contract extension, him and his whole staff through 2027. What's the buyout there? It's not like they can just fire him and they're off the hook for everything. That's not going to be the case. There's going to be something. And then you have to think about bringing in a new manager. What's the cost going to be? I don't know if Fosun wants to spend the money on that. I think they may want to roll the dice. Adam?
Yeah, not to give the Crying Wolves podcast a little plug, but we did cover this in the Crying Wolves podcast, episode 2, about relegation. Our thought is that he will go down with the ship, and we do not see a world in which they let Gary O'Neill go and bring in another manager. I don't know who they would be able to attract with what they want to pay. As you said, I don't think Gary O'Neill's buyout would be too much, just because I think he knows that he doesn't have much credit in the bank in terms of.
But it ain't free, I can tell you that.
Yeah, of course. And it's money to spend, whether it would be sizable. I mean, I don't think his salary has been revealed much, but I can't imagine it's too high. I just don't think that they're going to get rid of him for any reason. I think they'll try to support him as much as possible in January and give him some center backs, which may help alleviate some of the concerns if they haven't already been alleviated by that time. I just don't see us getting rid of him anytime soon. And I don't know if that's for better or for worse, but I do think he'd do pretty well in the championship, but hopefully we don't need to see that.
There's no way if they get relegated, there's no way they're letting him stick around on the team in the championship. And plus, if we're in last place still at the end of December, I think this time they may look to sell off some assets and just get their money while people are desperate and stuff. All right, guys. Big game then, according to Paul, make or break, and that is Saturday at 10 a.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Central at Brighton. Okay, Paul, we saw the 3-5-2 against Man City. Sticking with that formation, changing some guys. What are you doing?
I'm sticking with the formation, but it actually leads into a no stupid question that we had come through as well, and it was from Drew in Pittsburgh, and he's talking a lot around the setup of that 3 centre backs and what it does to the midfield, and whether the 3 actually causes an imbalance. He asked, do you need a midfield 2 in effect? And if that way, do you consider dropping Lamina? So based on that, and again, type of opponent, I think that where we saw the most success last year from that formation was by having the 3 attackers. And it does seem, if that's the case, that certainly 3 into the 2 central midfielders doesn't go. Even 4, if you add Tommy Doyle into the mix into those 2 central midfielders, doesn't go. So it's a tricky one for me. I like the 3 at the back. I still think it can give us that defensive solidity a little more without stifling us too badly when it comes to the offensive output, be it from Out-Nuri or or Semedo. But I do think you need a little more added intent with a third forward and sacrifice that third midfielder.
What do you think, Danny?
It's so hard to say because I think that Gary O'Neill, that is, alluded to a change after that Brentford performance. And as we said last week, it's so hard to read into anything with the Man City game, because regardless of how our season had been going, that lineup was always going to be a bit bespoke for the unique challenge that City presented. I feel very conflicted about it because I think I sort of agree. I think, Paul talked about this, and I've seen a lot of people mention this, that, we'd prefer maybe a midfield 2, or at the very least to see Doyle get some minutes. And it just feels like with Lamina being weird, like kind of undroppable because he's captain, it just leaves you with not a ton of options. But it does feel very odd to play, essentially like a 5-3-2. So you have 3 center backs on, and then you have 3 like somewhat defensively minded midfielders as well. I mean, Lamina and João Gomez aren't pure defensive midfielders, but still, it's just it feels extremely unbalanced. So I hope, and I would be very excited to see Doyle come in, whether that's in a 2 or a 3. But I don't know that I'm particularly optimistic that it'll happen.
Adam, do you feel like if you're going to keep going with that 3 in the back, either Andre or Gomez is going to have to sit?
Yeah, I mean, I really don't think the 5-3-2 is the good shape for us. I mean, I think when we do that, you're going to force Lamina to have to go wide again, and nobody wants to see that. I think with the back 3, we shouldn't need as much protection in the midfield, and therefore I think we would just do 2. And as Danny said, I don't think Lamina gets dropped anytime soon. He's the captain. He went blonde, so he did everything he could do for us. So it'll either be João Gomez or Andre. I think that Gary likes Andre more than João Gomez, or at least what he can offer, but I'm just not sure that he'll make that change given how much João Gomez loves Gary O'Neill, as we've heard in many interviews. So I do think the right shape is a 5-2-3. I do think we need extra width. I think it takes off some of the responsibility for Semedo if we have someone on the right. So it could be Forbes, who we've seen now get more and more time, which is good, and get acclimated to the league. So that's where I would lead and I would go, but who knows? We may just want to be defensive to keep things, low goals and maybe eke out a 1-0 or something.
Todd says just start Doyle. I think that's Paul's solution as well, right?
11 Doyles.
11 Doyles.
The James Milner effect.
Yeah, I saw about 20 different comments when Nunes came on about, we know how this ends. Nunes is going to score the winner. He's going to score a screamer. And I tried to reply to as many of them as I could with, why not Doyle?
By the way, did you see the Man City article that came out that was like, Nunes gets the last laugh? And I was like, what the fuck did he do?
What did he do except for get away with a clear
my mentions that had like a picture of him doing that? I was like, okay, cool. Somebody that had nothing to do with the goal. They're like, you didn't see the lead up to the goal. And I was like, what? He got to pass 3 things before a second corner kick? Like, get the fuck out of here, man. He didn't do jack squat. Whatever. So Brighton's 5th in the table. Paul's saying he wants it must win. How about you, Adam? Do you feel like they need points for you to feel better?
I mean, I'd love a win, right? We haven't won in the league since March, so it would make me feel a lot better if we beat Brighton. Do I think it's going to happen? No, not at all. I think at best we could eke out a draw, and I mean, we did play well against them in the cup, so maybe we learned some mistakes from that. The back 3 may give us more protection. Hopefully, Jose Sa keeps his role because I think he's a much better goalie. But I don't see this as a win, unfortunately, but I'd love to be proven wrong. I would love to have a good weekend.
Danny, what's Brighton looking like right now?
It's funny. I did a little opposition research back when we were going to play them in the cup. I can't remember if we ever got to that, but as I guess we all know that they prefer sort of a 4-2-3-1 shape. That hasn't really changed from last season. They sometimes mix it up with like a 4-4-2, but I think even when it is strictly a 4-4-2, it's not, your sort of classic mid-century 4-4-2. They've had a decent start to the season, and in fact had several wins to begin with. But then they had, I think, 3 straight draws. But despite that, as you said, they're currently sitting in 5th. So it's hard to see how they would be disappointed with that result of their opening run of games. From what I've looked at, they don't seem quite as high scoring as they used to be. I feel like, especially when they played us, although that was sort of the Lopetegui era where we were letting in huge numbers of goals against them potentially. But
that's 6:30 game. Oh.
Yeah, that was rough. But no, I mean, the games that they've won have been, much tighter this year. And like I said, they've had 3 draws. So I sort of alluded to this earlier. I'd call it a little more attritional. And the one like sort of silver lining that I see from that is that we've had an extremely attritional season. So maybe we're prepared to handle that kind of thing. Although I'm sure not many people are feeling super confident in terms of, the players who probably make a difference. Welbeck has actually been having a pretty decent season. Obviously there's the young player Minta, who's also having a great season so far. So it'll be interesting. I think I sort of got the impression that people were very high on Fabian Hertzler when he came into the league, and that maybe expectations were like very high, and maybe like he hasn't even quite lived up to them despite the fact that they're in 5th. So I'm kind of curious to see what they bring.
I think Welbeck's injured though.
Is that true?
I think he went off. I mean, I didn't watch the game because I'm trying to have a good life. But I think he went off after 45 with an injury, but I'm not sure if he'll be playing against him. I'm sure he'll play for 5 minutes and score the winner. So
yeah, that's about right.
Paul, am I weird for not liking Brighton because they have 2 cities in their name?
Brighton and Hove.
Right.
Yeah, and they're an Albion, and they play in blue and white, and it just feels that we've got a terrible record against them. Crappy place to go and get to. So yeah, just they're not a very likable team as far as the Wolves are concerned.
All right, let's look at the standings here. Danny, go fuck yourself. You got the 2-1 win, so you got 3 points. Alex had 2-0. He got 1 point. Man, me and Paul thought we were actually going to get some stuff on the board. Not so much. Danny has 9 points. Alex has 7. The guest spot has 3 points, with Adam actually contributing one of those. I've got 2 points, and Paul has 1. So, yeah, Gary O'Neill is leading our picks as well, Paul.
That's right, yeah.
Okay, Adam, we're going to start with you. What do you got?
3-1 Brighton win.
Starting off strong here.
Sorry.
Oh,
I would love to be wrong. I would love to be wrong, but they're just peaking, and we are very much valuing.
Guys, if they lose 3-1 on Monday, it's going to be tough getting on, or this Saturday, it's going to be tough getting here on Monday. Oh. Danny?
I'm going to go.
You better not say 3-1.
No, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go the old Desmond. 2-2.
2-2 draw. Okay. Alex isn't here. Yeah. Paul.
I said we need a win. I'm going to have a little bit of confidence that there's something in me that this will generally be the turnaround, half glass full and everything. I want to say the candle kicks in because there was this disclaimer on it that it may take a few days. Brighton and Hove Albion 0, Wolverhampton Wanderers 2.
Let's go.
2-0. Let's go.
Can you imagine?
Let's go. I like what Paul's thinking.
I like what Paul's drinking.
Yeah. Let's go. Let's go. We got it lit. Here we go. It is going to be a 1-0 Wolves clean sheet. The candle will do its work. We are almost there. There's just VAR got us in the way, but it's going to work. It's going to work. 1-0 Wolves.
No Stupid Questions is presented by Esfuerzo Wines. Located just north of Santa Barbara, California, Esfuerzo Wines showcases passion and 3 generations of winemaking in every bottle. So whether you're celebrating a Wolves victory or winding down after a day at work, let Esfuerzo Wines transport you to the heart of California's wine country with every sip. For a limited time, head to esfuerzowines.com and use the promo code WOLVES for a 15% discount on your wine purchases. This message is intended for those of legal drinking age. Do not drink and drive. Excessive alcohol consumption may be harmful to your health. If you or someone you know is struggling with alcohol abuse, please seek help. Esfuerzo Wines reminds you to enjoy their products responsibly and in moderation.
I tell you what, Paul, considering I paid $18 for this candle, it doesn't really have that much of a scent.
Especially like with this time of year and like pumpkin spice and
Yeah, you
stuff
would
for
have
the
thought I had
holidays.
something. I guess
You gotta
guess
get
getting spirits away doesn't have, pleasant scents that go with it.
True. So, no stupid questions where you, our listener, can ask us anything related to the Wolves by either hitting us on the socials on X at WLWpod or via email, which is hello@wholelotofwolves.com. First up is Todd DeWitt on Twitter or X. And Todd asks, with temperatures dropping and seasons changing, which player will be the first to wear gloves on the pitch?
Cunha.
Adam, let's go for you first.
Yeah, I'm just trying to remember who wore gloves last season. I can only remember Hwang in gloves, and unfortunately we won't be seeing him for a bit. So did Lamina wear gloves? I could see him in gloves even if he didn't, and if it's not him.
I think Jal wore gloves.
Did he? Silly Brazilians. I guess that makes sense. Yeah, let's go. Let's go, Zhao.
Yeah, well, it's either going to be Cunha or Andre. I think it's going to be one of the Brazilian guys is going to start out.
Danny?
Yeah, I think Andre is a really smart choice because we also know that he's still getting acclimated. And so, I don't know. He's a bit of a hard man. I mean, Todd points out in the chat that Doc is a good answer. That's pretty decent. He tends to wear the gloves. The question is he going to be on the pitch in order to wear them?
No.
I'll throw a curveball in. This is probably not going to happen, but I could see that if Rodrigo Gomez were to get some garbage time minutes or something, he's a little boy. I could see him putting on the gloves before coming on for 7 minutes at the end of a game.
I could actually see. Sorry, go ahead.
Carry on, Adam.
I could actually see Carlos Forbes wearing gloves as well. I think, and he would rock them very well.
I mean,
it is going to be dark.
So.
Coming on, just to lock down that 2-0 away victory on Saturday, you can see him coming out, switching on for Semedo, and it's got to be dark.
Drew says,
okay,
I like that.
Next up is 2 questions that have been emailed to hello@wholelotofwolves by Drew Breyer. First one he asks is, do you think they try and sign more than one centre-back in January now that there has been a switch in formation? Drew thinks that the team needs an upgrade on Totti, and Andre gave him a normal pass yesterday that he couldn't handle and picked up a booking straight after when the opponent obtained possession. So, thoughts on January and centre backs?
They're cheap. Again, they're cheap. They'll get one. They'll bring in one who's just kind of like, nah. All right. Yeah, that Toady play was tough to watch. Oof.
Yeah, but that was Andre's fault, not Toti's fault. Andre was not looking at where Toti was. You can't blame Toti for that one. Listen, I think Toti makes plenty of mistakes. I do think he's a pretty good center back. I've said it before. I'll say it again. That was an Andre misplaced pass, not a Toti, not in the right position. In terms of answering the question, I'll just hop in. I do think it depends where we are in the league. If we're still bottom of the league on 1 or 2 or 3 points, I think they're going to have to pay some money. I saw your face there. I'm just going to have to pay some money to bring in some quality center backs. I think that if we pick up points in November and we end up, in 14th, 15th, 16th maybe, and there's a little bit of distance between us and Southampton, we may just get one, $8.5, $10 million center back that just sits on the bench, and we play the 3 we have.
God, 1 or 2 or 3 points heading into January.
I'm just giving the listeners a positive outlook. If you keep your expectations low, you're never disappointed. So, maybe we're at one point come December. I really hope not.
There's some meat on the bone with the other question that Drew emailed in, because he asks, has Sarr kept his place with Sunday's performance and Johnson's injury?
100%. Danny?
I mean, yeah, strictly speaking, I think he did a really good job. I think he had a great performance, but I'll say a couple things. One, I think that I'm a little skeptical of the Johnstone injury, and who knows? It's just, I don't know. The comments by Gary O'Neill were very at the end about not having a headache, and it's hard for me not to believe that he just brings Johnstone back in. Should Jose Sa keep his place? 100%. I think we saw that. Whatever we gain in distribution, Johnstone really hasn't shown that he can pull off enough saves to keep this defense in the game. That's the main thing. Now, if we shore up the defense and Johnstone doesn't need to make those saves, then that's fine. But that hasn't been proven yet. So I would prefer Jose Sa keep his place. Do I think he will? Probably not.
That was so important, Danny. It had to be heard twice continuously there, too. What do you think, Paul? Sam Johnston? Oh.
I think based on yesterday, Sarr made a couple of saves that Johnson was never getting close to. So based on performance, I think he's got to stay in, and maybe that's one criticism of O'Neill that he probably realised is there's been a mistake there, and it's a hard one for him to own up to, even though he seems to be quite a fan of looking to take the blame away from the players. I think that he knew exactly what he was saying in yesterday's press conference after the game, turning headache of the impending decision versus headache that Sarr had been causing trouble behind the scenes or something along those lines. I think he knew exactly what he was saying, and it was a type of deflection away from it. But I think it's just a case of the player in form gets to keep the shirt regardless of position. Based on Sunday, it should be Sarr's.
Todd's got a question on here. Who gets transferred out first, Johnston or Sa? I still think Sa would be transferred out first.
Well, it's like, if you look at it, like I saw comments yesterday that they've wasted 10 million on Johnson, thinking he's number one, or is it 10 million better investment having a capable backup on the bench that could be needed instead of Dan Bentley, who can't do pretty much anything worthwhile when it comes to keeping the ball out the net. So in this day and age, reasonable Premier League experienced keeper, not taking up an overseas berth, 10 million probably say fair enough. Now the question is if that's used as some justification to give him the starting spot, which I think it shouldn't be, again, after Sunday and after the body of work that we've seen Johnston contribute. So having those two vying for the number one shirt, maybe it brings out the best in Sarr and he locks it down and is capable and competent throughout the rest of the season. If he goes down, it's not as drastic as looking to Dan Bentley to try and keep in the game, because you got arguably a decent backup.
Yeah, I just don't think that the purchase of Johnston is to sit on the bench and to take that number 2 spot. I think it's very much brought in to replace Saw, and I think Saw goes in January. I think Saw should keep his place. I think he's a much better goalkeeper. His distribution may not be as good as Johnson, but I don't think Johnson's distribution has been anything that we should really get excited about. So I'd much rather have Saw in goal than over Johnston. And yes, we saw Saw not have his best performances in the first few games, but I think that's because he was expecting to leave and kind of had his mind wobbled a little bit there. But I think we saw how good he could be against Man City. I think he's an excellent goalkeeper. He's probably one of the best goalkeepers outside of the top teams. And Johnston is not an upgrade in any way, shape, or form. Whether we still sell Saw in January, even if he plays the next few fixtures and does well for us, I don't trust Fosun, so I'm sure Saw's gone in January.
Yeah.
What if selling Saw means that we can get a semi above average center back?
You're really not selling it.
It shouldn't be up to selling Saw that we get a above average center back.
But it will be.
It should be the fact that we're on 1 point in December.
Yeah, I hate you so much, Adam.
And that is it for No Stupid Questions. So big thanks to our friends at Espresso Wines. Head to espressowines.com, use the promo code Wolves at checkout, and you will get 15% off your order.
All right, Adam. Where can people find the potty?
You can find the Crying Wolves podcast on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and we are at Crying Wolves Pod on X. And you can find me on X as well at Nothing But Neto or Stone Cold Strand Larson.
And that brings this week's show to an end. Thank you to the listener or you, the watcher. Your support makes this all happen. Thanks to Danny on the socials, Alex producing. We're going to be back same time, same place next week for either 3 points, 1 point, or maybe no points. We shall see, and then preview what we have in store when Crystal Palace are next up at Molineux. So in the meantime, we do what we can, and as we walk down the street, we meet new people and we say to them, up the mighty Wolves.